This wedding was an assignment for my Religion 2 class in Catholic school.
This one's wife. King meets Harry. Mistake? Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. The Duke of Sussex has been reunited with the King for the first time in 19 months. Prince Harry and his father spent 54 minutes together over a private tea, presumably not as ever tea, at Clarence House, the monarch's London home, on Wednesday evening. The meeting came on the eve of Prince Harry's return to California from a 4-day visit to the UK, designed around his charity commitments. The relationship, albeit brief, will be seen as a turning point in the pair's relationship. The Duke has made no secret of his desire to make peace with the King, but his various legal battles and propensity to express his feelings on television have not helped his cause. In May, he gave a lengthy interview in which he admitted he had no idea how long the King had left to live, and expressed a clear desire for a rapprochement, saying, "I would love a reconciliation with my family." The Duke's visit this week has coincided with a flurry of public engagements by his brother, the Prince of Wales, but the pair, who remain estranged, have not met. The King, meanwhile, has no public engagements this week, but flew down to London from Balmoral, where he has been spending his summer break for his weekly cancer treatment. The first sign of a potential reunion came when the King was spotted boarding a London plane in Aberdeen at around 2 p.m. He arrived at Clarence House shortly before 4 p.m, and his son, dressed in a suit and tie, was driven through the gates to a barrage of camera flashes 80 minutes later at 5:20 p.m. At 6:13 p.m, Prince Harry was whisked back out and straight to a reception for Invictus Games supporters in the City of London. He was due to arrive at 6:45 p.m, got stuck in traffic, and eventually arrived at 7:24 p.m, the second time this week he has been late thanks to the knock-on effects of the ongoing tube strike. The Duke no longer benefits from blue light police escorts which would be able to cut through the heavy central London traffic. He was delayed by 45 minutes arriving at an event in Nottingham on Tuesday. Before meeting the King on Wednesday, he spent 2 hours at the Centre for Blast Injury Studies, where he revealed that through his Archwell Foundation, he had donated $500,000 to projects supporting injured children from Gaza and Ukraine. Accordingly, Harry and the King meet up. There, of course, had been speculation about this taking place, and it would appear that the meeting of the PR advisors some weeks ago was a precursor to this happening. But what is behind the motivation of King Charles in respect of meeting with Harry, and is it a mistake? When Harry was in the UK in May, he and his father didn't meet up. Conflicting schedules, of course, were referenced, but there was also the point being made that whilst Harry was still involved in his court case about security, the King did not feel that it was appropriate for him to have involvement with Harry, seeking to maintain impartiality. But what might be behind the motivation of King Charles for acquiescing to such a meeting? It's evident that Harry has pushed for such a meeting, and King Charles has agreed to it. But why might he have done this? There are, of course, some commentators who have lamented this action on the part of King Charles because they regard it as weak. The fact that he has allowed his errant son an audience after all of his poor behaviours and that of this one's wife is seen as a particularly weak move, that he ought to have remained strong and continued to ignore his son and his handler by way of expressing disapproval for the behaviours that the pair have engaged in, to reinforce the message, you made your own bed, you're going to have to lie in it. There's also the observations in respect of how might this make William feel. After all, he has behaved himself. He has demonstrated loyalty towards his father, that he has continued to get on with the job despite the difficult circumstances of Catherine's ill health. And yet, where does this leave him? Is it the case that he's thinking, why do I bother after all of this good behaviour on my part? My brother behaves like a grade A arsehole, a weapons grade helmet, and then he's just allowed to come and see Pa. Naturally, William maintained his no-contact regime. But in relation to this meeting between Charles and Harry, is this some kind of insult towards William generated by his father? Now, naturally, Charles needs control himself in relation to the situation with Harry, and also one of the important aspects for him is the maintenance of a particular facade. That is, that he wants to be seen as a loving father. There is naturally the conflict that takes place between the question of duty to the position of monarch and family, and invariably, as Queen Elizabeth II demonstrated, that duty comes even before family. And therefore, there are those that would suggest that Charles has failed to maintain his duty to his position by allowing someone who has roundly attacked the monarchy to have an interaction with him. On the other hand, there are those that would say, well, the king is not in good health. We don't know the extent of his illness other than knowing that he has cancer, and he's elderly. It could be that he has many years left, but it also has to be considered that there's a possibility that he has not, and he knows this, and therefore, even for a narcissist, that he would want to make some kind of peace with his son. For other people who are not narcissists, any kind of rift with a family member in circumstances where their mortality is under threat is invariably driven by emotional empathy, a desire to ensure that the rifts are healed, that there isn't any unfinished business, that they can gain peace of mind. Well, even with a narcissist, those similar considerations apply, for the narcissism will cause the narcissist to think in such terms, but as you know, it does so in order to drive the narcissist to achieve control over the relevant appliance, by causing the narcissist to think about the necessity of getting affairs in line, to stop the falling out, to gain peace of mind. All of this is done to drive the narcissist to assert control over the particular appliance and potentially draw fuel from them, whilst energizing the facade also. Accordingly, the actions of Charles in allowing an audience with his son will naturally be done for the pursuit of the prime aims, and it might be under the auspices of peace of mind. There is also the consideration that Charles will have done this because it's part of a facade management to show that he purportedly cares about his son. For instance, his son comes into the country, the court case is over, yet time isn't made for Charles to meet with Harry. That means that Charles would face criticism, for there would be some that would say, well, he's your son irrespective of what has gone on. You should try and build bridges with him, mend those broken fences, etc. And therefore there's the possibility of criticism in that regard. We know that Charles takes his image seriously, part of the facade that is generated, and therefore his narcissism may well cause him to have a desire to ensure that he is viewed favourably as the forgiving father. Of course, the collateral consequences apply. The point is that it could then disrupt his relationship with William, as I've pointed out. The alternative might be, furthermore, that his narcissism has caused him to decide that he needs to set Harry straight upon a few things, and that since he is in the same country, this was an opportune moment for him to spend less than an hour with him, but again give him some home truths. It might have been utilised to upbraid him about his behaviour. It might have been to set him straight about what he's been doing. It might have been done to manage particular expectations in terms of being told, there is no way back for you. You're not getting back into the royal family. No, you're not getting a handout. No, you've had plenty of money so far. You've made your own bed. You're going to have to go and lie in it. And therefore, it could have also been used as an assertion of control over Harry, basically to tell him that he's behaved like an arsehole and he's out of line and no, he's not getting what he wants. Undoubtedly, there will be leaks and speculation in respect of what was said. The royal experts will be rolled out to suggest what might have been discussed, what Charles' position will have been, and what Harry will have been after. And ultimately, there's only two people, and possibly whoever else was in the room, who knows precisely what they spoke about. We know that the Prince of Pink Pancakes has a propensity for leaking the information, something, of course, that he's been influenced in by his handler and the necessity of running to the media. Charles undoubtedly will have been mindful of that fact, and therefore not only will Charles ensure that Harry was screened to ensure that no recording devices were brought in, but he will also have been mindful of what was said being potentially utilised by the whinging prince to then put in an interview on American television or once again contacting the BBC. Whatever Charles did in relation to this meeting, he would likely to face critics. Not meet with Harry, he faced the accusation of being an uncaring father. Meet with Harry, there are those, without actually knowing what was said, who would suggest that he's been weak for allowing the meeting in the first place. Of course, that all depends upon what was said. If he's welcomed him back and made assurances and promises about what he can gain, possibly that is viewed as a weakness on his part, albeit driven by his pursuit of the prime aims. Alternatively, he's adopted a harsher and sterner line with his errant son, but we don't know. But ultimately, given what has occurred, that he decided to meet with Harry, albeit for less than an hour, what are your views, valuable viewers? Do you think this was a weak act on the part of King Charles? Do you think, actually, that it was a sensible thing to do, to at least be seen to be decent with him, irrespective of what might have been discussed? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.